From evacuations, we turn to expulsions. There's a major diplomatic crisis unfolding between China and Canada. It's been brewing for a while, but now the gloves are off. Canada fired the first shot on Monday. They expelled a Chinese diplomat based in Toronto. This man, Zhao Wei. 24 hours later, China responded. They've decided to expel a Canadian diplomat in Shanghai. She's been asked to leave China by the 13th of May. But what exactly led to this spiraling crisis? To answer that question, we must go back to the year 2021. That's when Canada's intelligence agencies prepared a report on Chinese influence in Canada. This report talked about one leader in particular, Michael Chong, an opposition MP. He belongs to the Conservative Party. He was apparently targeted by China. Why? Because Chong criticized China's Uyghur crackdown. He also sponsored a motion declaring it a genocide. And what did Beijing do? They put Zhao Wei on the job, the same diplomat who was expelled on Monday. Zhao was tasked with finding information about this lawmaker's family in China. You can guess why. To intimidate them, to make an example out of Michael Chong, sort of like a gang war tactic. Now, this report was prepared in 2021, but last week, Canadian media accessed it. They asked why no action had been taken, why Justin Trudeau's government did not confront China. The government came under pressure, which brings us to present day. Trudeau has finally escalated the matter. He expelled the Chinese diplomat. Beijing responded in kind. Plus, they're threatening Canada with consequences.
China is unwavering in its determination to safeguard its own interests. We urge the Canadian side to immediately stop unreasonable provocations. If Canada does not listen to the advice and acts recklessly, China will fight back resolutely and forcefully, and the Canadian side must bear all the consequences arising from this.
Now, this is not some isolated controversy. It's part of a larger game, a game to influence Canada's elections. I'm not saying this. Justin Trudeau is. He has admitted that China tried to meddle in Canada's elections, once in 2019, then again in 2021. So what exactly is Beijing's strategy here? The answer lies with Michael Chong. Why do you think China targeted him? The Uyghur motion was one reason, but he wasn't the only MP who supported it. There were others too. Yet China chose to target him. Why? Because Michael Chong has Chinese ancestry. He probably has family in China. And that makes him a prime candidate for China's mind games. Credit to him, he hasn't wavered. You see, Canada is home to a large Chinese origin community, around 1.8 million people. They make up around 5% of Canada's population. And China is hoping to weaponize that, to turn those people against Canada. Again, I'm not the one saying this. Chinese Canadian leaders are. Listen in to the chair of the Toronto Association for Democracy in China.
You get a phone call, not only just in the middle of the night, but you get a phone call in the middle of the day asking, so how are your parents doing back in Sichuan, China? And then you get the message. That means if you don't behave, your parents' phone numbers, address, or even their physical well-being is under threat. So in that sense, it's a very subtle threat, and they've used this on many, many Chinese Canadians. I'm sure they have done this to Mr. Totti as well.
So that's the strategy. First, target people of Chinese ancestry, then intimidate them by threatening their family back home in China. And it's not a new strategy. It's the same one that China used in Australia. 5 years ago, similar reports emerged in Australia. Reports that said that China was meddling in their elections. How did Australia respond? With tougher laws. They banned foreign donations to political parties. They also enacted a new registry of foreign agents. Demography was a factor here too. Australia, you see, is home to 1.4 million people of Chinese heritage. They make up about 5.5% of Australia's population. Like in Canada, Beijing tried to weaponize it through intimidation and through so-called cultural outreach groups. Back then, Australia had the appetite to take China on. The question is, does Justin Trudeau have it? He says foreign interference will not be tolerated, yet his government did not do anything for 2 years. They did tolerate it for 2 years. The intelligence reports were prepared in 2021, but Trudeau acted only in 2023, only when they became a subject of public debate. So the obvious question is, what was he doing until now? And I understand that the scale of China's interference may be negligible. Its impact may be virtually nil, but this is about principle. Interfering in elections is a direct violation of sovereignty. It's no different from border incursions. So what should Prime Minister Trudeau be doing now? He's already ordered an inquiry. That should shed more light on these allegations. In the meantime, let me tell you what Trudeau should not be doing. China is making the mistake of questioning the loyalty of people living abroad. Chinese Canadians are loyal to Canada, not to China. Same with Chinese Australians. Trudeau must not forget this, because his crackdown on Chinese meddling could easily turn racist. It could alienate the Chinese community in Canada. And that's what Beijing is banking on. That's what Canada should guard against.